Hello, my name is Russell Bowyer and I represent Bowfin Property, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to avoid repossession of your home. So what am I going to cover in this presentation today? So firstly, I'm going to talk about the options you have to avoid your home being repossessed. Can the bank repossess my home? What happens when you have your home repossessed? What's a shortfall on a mortgage? How long is a repossession on your credit report? And then I'll give you a few final words at the end. So, what are the options that you have to avoid being repossessed in the first place? Well, firstly, the most important thing to think about is to act immediately. When you receive that first letter because you've missed a mortgage payment from the bank, is to respond to that letter and correspond with the bank and speak to them. Don't stick your head in the sand is the most important advice that I can give to you today. But also importantly, I suggest that you seek expert advice. Speaking to someone that knows what they're talking about when it comes to repossession is very important, particularly if you're feeling a bit nervous or you're feeling very stressed about the situation and you're struggling to pay your mortgage. If you've missed the first payment, you'll have had a letter, and you need to be able to speak to someone about moving forward and future mortgage payments and how to speak to the bank on what your rights are and what you should be doing. There are many organisations in the UK. There's Shelter, there's Citizens Advice, or in fact there's Step Change, which is also a charity. And they're there to help you, to guide you through this process, which is not a nice thing to be going through, but it is something that happens to people, and if it's happening to you, then please do seek some advice from an expert. Speak to your lender. I've already said that if you've had a letter, don't be afraid to speak to them. Pick up the phone and speak to their repossessions department and see if you can find out what can be done, and tell them your situation. And the bank is there to work with you, bearing in mind they don't want to repossess. They want to work with you. They want to see if they can help. It's always a good idea, particularly after that conversation, and during that conversation, in fact, you can speak about paying something towards your arrears. Even if you can pay something, this looks good from the bank's point of view, but later on, if it ever gets further down the track and goes to court, a judge would look more favourably upon you if you are trying to at least pay something towards your mortgage and something to keep your mortgage arrears from increasing without paying anything. You could also, when you speak to your bank, try to renegotiate your mortgage terms. If you're on a repayment mortgage, perhaps you could seek for a period of time to reduce it down to interest only, or ask for a mortgage repayment holiday. Or indeed, if you've got through the tough time and you're able to restart paying your mortgage payments, you could seek to have the arrears that you've built up added to the balance of your mortgage, so you add it to the end and you pay it over the period of time. There are various things that you can do, but of course, by going back to the second point, is by seeking expert advice. They can talk you through all of that and how to approach the bank on those things. There is also help out there with your mortgage payments from the Support for Mortgage Interest. The best thing I can suggest is if you do a Google search on that phrase, Support for Mortgage Interest, and have a look at that. Not everyone is eligible, but you may well be. And bearing in mind, once you start applying for that, a bank cannot repossess you when you're going through that process, because it shows that you are trying to see if you can sort out paying your mortgage. So have a look at that, see if you're eligible, and that may well be the help you need to get you through this difficult time. You could also seek help from a property solutions company like ours, like Bowfin. We can help take over your property, and there are various solutions or creative ideas that we can come up with, depending on your circumstances, to sort out your problem and avoid you from being repossessed. But it does depend on your circumstances what you intend to do, but it's something that we we can discuss with you. So I suggested if that is your situation, you would like to speak to us, the best thing to do is to go to our website, which is bowfin.co.uk, or do a Google search on Bowfin Property, and we'll be number one on Google. And just go to our Contact Us page and send us a message, and we'll call you or arrange a call with you to sort it out. Can the bank repossess my home, you may ask? Yes, they can, but only if all options to avoid repossession have been exhausted. They don't want to repossess you. For one, it's bad publicity for them, but also they've got to be seen by the FCA and also the courts, if it ever gets to that stage, that they can demonstrate that they've tried to help you and they've tried to avoid a repossession going ahead. And this is why it's important that equally you show good faith by trying to help them, or help yourself to help them help you, basically. If you don't help yourself, no one can. So please don't stick your head in the sand and work with your bank. Yes, the bank can repossess, and this is one of the things I've been going on about, is if you ignore your lender and fail to act, the inevitable outcome will be that you get repossessed, which of course you don't want to happen. In order to do so, the lender has to go to court, and they have to seek a court order in order to repossess your home. But there's a way off for that, and they can only do that after you've missed 3 months mortgage payments. There's an agreement across the banks in the UK to not repossess for that period of time. And as it happens, while I'm presenting now, we're in the COVID or coronavirus pandemic, and the government has prevented banks from repossessing anybody up to at least October 2020 for the time being. So if you're finding yourself in difficulty, don't just accept that and don't do it. You have to think you can't do anything, or don't do anything. Use that time to see if you can try and resolve the problem, because you've got a bit of an extended time to sort it out with the bank. And as I said before, remember, banks or lenders don't want to repossess your home. They prefer to avoid this, and they prefer to work with you. So what happens when you have your home repossessed, you might ask? The bank themselves, assuming they have repossessed your home, they have a duty to get the best price they can reasonably obtain for your house. However, probably most of us know that repossessed properties don't always sell for market value, because it's a forced sale and they're often sold at auction, and the bank will set a reserve, which is the minimum amount they'd accept for it. And if, for example, the auction isn't well attended and someone comes up with at least the reserve, that's what it would sell for. And as long as they can demonstrate that they've done everything they can to set at a reasonable price, then, or the best price they can reasonably obtain at auction, then that's what it would sell for. You might wonder why that's important. Well, the sale proceeds they receive are what they use to clear down what's owed to your mortgage lender, and I'll come on to what that might include. And that's important because any surplus will be returned to you. However, if there's a mortgage shortfall, and I'll explain exactly how that can come about, they could come to you for the balance. They don't always do that, but you've got to be aware that that may happen. So this is why it's so important for you to avoid being repossessed in the first place, because you can save yourself quite a lot of money. Also, it's important to understand that your credit report will be affected by the repossession, and it will be noted on your report. So what is a shortfall on a mortgage? Well, a shortfall happens when what's recovered from your lender, in other words the sale proceeds, whether it's auction or sold otherwise, these amounts are deducted from those proceeds. So firstly, it'll be the balance of your mortgage, followed by any arrears on your mortgage, so where you missed however many payments it is up to the date that they repossessed your home. Accrued interest, so interest will carry on to accrue on not only the balance but on the arrears too. There will be legal fees that they incur in order to take you to court. They will deduct those off. The court fees themselves to gain the court order, because they have to pay the court to get a court order in the first place. The agent's fees or the auction fees to sell the house. And then any other sundry costs associated with it to do with the repossession process. There could be other things where they've gained access to the house, making it secure and those type of things, because an empty house is potentially vulnerable to squatters and the like. And then finally, the repayment of any other loans that may be secured in your home that you may have taken out, perhaps to keep up your repayments or what have you. So there's a number of those costs that you could avoid by stopping the repossession. You could add the arrears to your mortgage. Of course, the interest will carry on accruing, but the legal fees, the court fees, the selling fees, and also the fact that the house is sold at what I would consider to be a lower value than you might be able to get otherwise. You can avoid the selling fees in some situations, and the sundry costs for sure. So if you can avoid repossession, for sure, that's the better route to go down. So how long is a repossession on your credit report? Because I mentioned that it would affect your credit report. But according to Experian, a repossession remains your credit report for 7 years. And that 7-year clock begins to run from your first missed mortgage payment. So that's a long time. And it goes to say that whilst it remains on there for that period of time, it does, or the impact does lessen over time. But it could still affect you in terms of what you can get in terms of credit. So obtaining future credit will be affected. It'll affect you potentially affect you opening up new bank accounts or getting credit cards. Or loans for that matter, or new loans, or certainly buying another house and getting a mortgage. It can also affect you obtaining insurance. But this is the point where you really need to speak to someone who's expert in this field, and also making sure that person you speak to, if it's someone other than the charities I mentioned, like Step Change and Shelter or Citizens Advice, is that they are regulated by the FCA, because then they can give you financial advice. Not something that we can do, because we're not regulated by the FCA, but we can talk generically about these things. But particularly we can help you where it doesn't involve providing you with advice like that. But we can point you in the direction of people that can help you with that too. Just a few final words. I can't emphasize enough that you shouldn't stick your head in the sand. This is something that often happens with people. They become like a rabbit in the headlights and they get scared and stressed, which is natural because it's your home. But you don't want to lose your home, so please do something about it. There is every chance that you could avoid the repossession. So don't ignore the letters from your bank, and seek help from us or the likes of Shelter, Step Change charities, or someone else who's regulated by the FCA. Where at all possible, try as hard as you can to avoid being repossessed and losing your home. I hope you've enjoyed what I've talked about today. My name is Russell Bowyer, as I said before. If you want to go and read about this subject on our blog, please do a Google search on Bowfin Property. Will be #1 on Google, or type in www.bowfin.co.uk. Please give us a thumbs up below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please, if you think this could help anyone else, please share us on social media. And also, if you're listening to this on a podcast, please subscribe to our podcast. And thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care, have a good day. Bye for now.